Faces in Fashion. Super excited for today's lecture. A couple quick announcements before we dive in. Lecture prep questions continue to roll into me all the way up until our last lecture on December 14th. I have been getting, I think almost everyone has submitted at least one by now, but just a reminder, you need to do 2 by the end of the semester. And attendance question will be asked at the end of the lecture today. Please make sure to email it to me for full credit for attending. And lastly, the one-to-one career advice sign up is on there. I should have added today too, starting next week, you guys will have access to your midterm, which is based on the State of the Fashion 2020 that McKinsey puts out every year. The State of the Fashion 2020 is posted in the share drive under content, on Blackboard under content. So if you want to get reading this week, if you haven't already, it's a great way to jumpstart yourself next week when the midterm questions are asked. You'll have a week to complete the midterm from next Monday to the following Monday, the 23rd. So the link will be live starting next week. Does anyone have questions on that? I know I did get a couple emails this week. Great. Refresher of remote guidelines and for Sarah to see as well. Students, if you want to speak or anyone else who's on the call who wants to speak, please raise your hand and I'll call on you in order. If you have immediate or pressing questions, I'll be paying attention to the chat and we'll be sure to respond. If you're speaking, please turn on your camera. And if you raise your hand, please preemptively turn it on. And as always, unmute only when you begin to speak. All classes are being recorded. Can everyone hear me okay? Because I know there have been issues with my sound in the past. Maybe say something in the chat if there's any issues. Okay, good. So quick flash of our schedule, which is starting to wind down since we are on week 9. This week we have Sara Tosetti, who, as you guys know, is a costume designer, both from Paris and here in Brooklyn. Next week, Fran Dunaway, who's the CEO and co-founder of Tomboy X, will be joining us. As I just mentioned, the current issues class / midterm is due the week of Thanksgiving, and there's no live class. That's on 11/23. The following week is Virginie Lanouet from Paris at Isabelle Marant. She's a collection coordinator there. Kim Nemser will be our final solo speaker of the semester. She's a CMO at Warby Parker. And the final class lecture will be a Fashion Services Network panel comprised of about 3 to 5 panelists who support the fashion industry. And so with that, I would love to welcome Sara to the call. Hi, Sara. I see that you're
Hello.
here. How are you? Apologies. I need to open your bio. Here we go. Is it the same thing to myself last week? Okay.
I'm literally in front of the same bookshelf as that photo. That's great.
Oh. You're on brand.
Yeah.
Sara Jean Tosetti is a New York City-based costume designer originally from Paris, France. Designs include Salomé, the LA Opera, Xerxes, am I saying that right? Cato and Utica, Xerxes, Cato and Utica, the Glimmerglass Festival directed by Tazewell Thompson, the world premiere of Laura Kaminsky's As One, Open Academy of Music, Cosi and Tutte, Radamisto, at Julliard, The Tempest, Poppea, Carmen, Orpheus in the Underworld, Rinaldo, Cendrillon, A Flea in Her Ear, Manuscript, Exonerated, The Maids, Tis Pity She's a Whore, Gertrude and Claudius, West Side Story, Company, What You Do About Nothing at the Barrington Stage Company, Into the Woods, The Heart of Robin Hood, Richard III, 12th Night at Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival. She was also Associate Costume Design and has credits including the Metropolitan Opera, Lyric Opera of Chicago, Opera Bastille, Caesar's Place in Las Vegas, or Caesar's Place in Las Vegas, and multiple Broadway shows. She was awarded the, sorry, I don't know why this is flashing to you guys. It shouldn't be. Whoa, what's going on? Okay. Sorry about that. She was awarded the Princess Grace Award in Design, as well as the Belle Geddes Design Enhancement Award. She earned a BFA and MFA from NYU, the School of the Arts, and outstanding achievement in design. So that, welcome, Sara.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Always happy to have a different perspective. And I think, as you know, we had on Maria Hooper earlier in the semester. So the students got to hear a little bit about costume design from a film perspective and television and commercial. But really, they're all very interested in hearing from you on your theater background and kind of where the nuances and differences are between the two worlds. Would you mind giving us a little bit more color on your career path?
Sure. I mean, I'm originally from Paris. My father was French and my mom's American. And so I went back and forth between the two countries for a while. And then I think I had a really good high school guidance counselor that was like, you like fashion, you like theater, but you don't want to be an actress. And you like history and you like psychology. So you should go. And also you hate the suburbs. So you should get to New York. And you should go study costume design at NYU. And I was like, fine, just get me out of this small town. And she actually ended up being really on brand, and it really worked out because I did actually find a huge passion for it. And I've been in New York since I was 18 studying and doing this. So
great. So you, as soon as you graduated from college, you go right into.
Yeah, I went to undergrad first and I studied costume design, and then I think I worked in the industry and like around New York for about 6 years, and I didn't go, or I guess 7 years. I did not go to grad school until I was 28. Like, I didn't go straight from undergrad to grad. So I kind of knew when I went to grad school what industry I was going into, and why I was going. And so what I took those 3 years of grad school as, I mean, that's a conversation for an MFA conversation, but I took those 3 years as 3 years sort of off to sort of refill my creative tank. And I knew exactly why I was doing it. And it wasn't really for like a business thing or like an industry thing. It was just because I was exhausted of running around in real life New York, and I wanted 3 years off to just study plays and think about things and just have, a break. So then I did that, and so I graduated with my MFA when I turned 30. So I guess I went when I was 27 or 31. And then after that, that's when I really started assisting on Broadway, assisting on major things, working in some film and TV, some commercials, and really expanding all of the stuff that I've done. And I've sort of landed in opera, which is not, a lot of people love opera. Some people know opera like they know baseball, they know who played that part in like 1986, like whatever. I don't have any background in opera. I don't really read music or anything, but I ended up in that field because I like to build costumes I like to have costumes built from scratch. I like to invent things, and I like to do things where there's like gods and monsters and also a variety of body shapes. And I found that is the field that really respects the creative process. Now, that said, it's a tough field to be in because it's like saying like I want to be a librarian but only of Latin studies. Like it's reducing even more your ability to sell yourself because it's so specific. But I do think that once you get into it, I find it the most inclusive space.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know you know Maria, and so you know her background a little bit, and she did come from the fashion design world before this. Obviously, you knew right from 17 that you wanted to go into costume design and studied it in college, but have you come across people along the way that are more on the designer front who have decided that this is of particular interest and kind of switched courses?
That came from fashion?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a ton. There's a ton. I think I think it is a natural progression because you're sort of obsessed with clothes. But
Yeah.
I think the difference is that you have to start thinking about, it's not just the clothes, it's also like the why the character is wearing that. I mean, it is a little bit about how you think about a line conceptually, but it's like who's the person wearing the clothes? Why are they wearing it? Why did they buy it 5 months ago? Why are they wearing it that day? But also, in terms of design for stage, what is the overarching subconscious idea you're trying to give to the audience? What mood? I mean, to me, it's more like we're controlling the mood of the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Maria said that too about this, about being almost like a psychologist.
Yeah.
Itself being a costume designer. How much
Yeah.
we have to dive in. How did you get that very first job out of school?
One of my teachers at NYU recommended this, which also goes with the best entry level job that I think you can get. And might be also, I don't know what the first entry level job is for people at FIT, but for New York costume designers, the best job is to be a swatcher and to go into. For me, I worked at a Broadway costume shop, like a costume shop that makes all the clothes for Broadway, and I was their main swatcher. So they told me this dress is red and kind of shiny. Go find it. And so it was my job to figure out what kind of shiny means. Like, is it a satin? Is it brocade? Is it, and just to go and like find all the fabric samples for it.
Wow.
And I think that gives you a huge knowledge of the fabric stores, the city, how to get around. Also an understanding that it's not just about the sketch, it's also about what it's made out of, and it teaches you to be fast on your feet.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And you were just chatting a little bit about going back to get your MFA at NYU. Can you tell us why you decided to do it? Talk to us about, if you thought it was worthwhile and kind of what the program looked like across those 3 years.
I mean, you have to decide whether or not you are a nerd that likes school, like a Lisa Simpson type, like you need the A and you need the approval, or not. Because I don't think it's required in our business to have a master's. I think it's really, you could spend the 3 years working in the field, but you'll get to the same place as if you went to grad school. And grad school to me is more about exercising your brain, reconnecting with you as an artist. This is America, so you pay for that, right?
Yeah.
Like you pay for that time. I think there are a few really good programs. NYU is one of them, and it's run by a costume designer. That's why it was up to me, and I had a choice between NYU and Yale. Yale is run by a set designer. NYU is run by a costume designer. And I think so I felt like, also I don't know about you guys, but I was already in New York, and I was like, I don't want to give up my apartment. I don't want to go live in New Haven.
Yeah.
So there are all those realistic, real life things about it. There's also schools in LA you can go to, but I think you should only go to grad school where you intend on working. So if you want to stay in New York, go to NYU. If you want to move to LA, going to grad school is a great way to go and like meet people and like meet the industry there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's good advice. Tell us how this year's looked for you with COVID. I know it's kind of rough.
It sucks, you guys. There's no industry.
It sucked for everyone and everywhere.
It sucked for everyone. The entertainment, like Broadway, is completely shut down. The entire theater and opera industry is shut down. We can't do anything because we can't even. It's not even about having staff backstage. It's the audience. If there's not a safe place for us to put on a show, and for that show they have to sell tickets for 8 shows a week, or else they don't make money, or else it's too expensive to turn the lights on. So the idea that we could just put on a show and tape it and put it on Netflix, does not even come close to making it worthwhile for producers to do it. It just costs that much money. So this past year has sucked, but at the same time, it's been really good. I'm jumping into what we're working on now, which is like, there's some few Zoom theater things that are popping up, which I'm like, and it keeps us busy, I guess, but it's a little bit disheartening also. But the most important thing I think we're doing is rethinking how we work and rethinking like how we've prioritized, because we're part of the gig economy, we have been like a lot of us, myself included, have sacrificed everything for our career and our field. And now we're sort of like, well, wait, why are we doing that? We should be relaxing more. And why are we spending all of this time to make very little money? And, how I've been part of a group of people that's also breaking down all the problems in our industry. And so we've been activated in our union to try to fix some of the issues, which are mostly about us, overworking, the amount of I don't want to deter you guys, but the amount of abuse of time and, all of that stuff of working overtime, not getting paid for it, all of that stuff that I think costume designers and fashion people readily do. Mm-hmm. And how do we dismantle those things and create a safer space for us to all work in when we come back?
Yeah. It's sort of the theater world's equivalent of upgrading your technology that all the websites and stuff are doing, or the big companies are doing.
Yeah, and also the entire, rethinking anti-racist training and all of that stuff, and really trying to reset how we redo things. Because if we come back, our audience, this is a side thing, but our industry is based on our audience for theater and for Broadway and for opera is mostly old white people or tourists. And if we don't get those people to come watch the art we're making, we can't make art. Now that's a fundamental problem, because really we should be inviting people from the neighborhood, people that live in New York. We should be making this accessible to everybody. Why is this art just based on, why are Broadway tickets $140? So I think we're also trying to rethink. The pandemic has actually created something good, I think, for us, because it's made people rethink why they're not tapping into making art more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, that's a great silver lining.
We'll see if it works.
Yeah, exactly. I think I talked about this with Maria offline, not for my students, but so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, students, but I did listen to this daily podcast from New York Times about, a month and a half ago, about the only show that happened in Broadway this summer, which was up in the Berkshires. And just how much had to go into it to make it COVID approved and socially distanced. And even still, it had to be in the height of the summer when everyone could be outdoors. And still, I think they actually did the stage, what's the word I'm looking for? The stage directions based on being socially distant. So everyone was all 6 feet apart the whole show long and everything like that. But really, really interesting just to think about it from that perspective and what it actually would take to get going off the ground again.
Yeah, and yet I find that, and I don't know if are you guys all in New York, or are you all staying at home? Are you all doing classes remote and you're all at home?
We're 100% remote. So some people are here, but some people are based here and we're here originally, but some people are.
I mean, at the beginning, we were all terrified that we would just be I guess, at the beginning of the pandemic, we all thought, oh, damn, we're all just going to have to, work in film and TV, and no one's going to want to do theater again. And, but then I found myself during the BLM protests, being in protests and chanting all together and having that communal experience was so important. And I realized right at the beginning that I was like, oh, actually, everybody does want to be together and have an emotional experience together. And we had this, I think it was one of the moments where we were cheering. I don't remember. I think we were like cheering for Black Lives Matters, and then the organizers asked us to cheer for Mayor de Blasio, and everybody booed, and then everybody laughed. And it was that moment of like, oh, everybody's just had this like organic like reaction as a giant group, and it was hilarious and also heartwarming that we were all laughing together. And I was like, I was like, theater's going to be okay because we need to just have these experiences all together ultimately.
Yeah, no, definitely true.
So anyway, that's my long-winded
today about a vaccine. So maybe hope is on the way. So have you been able to work on any other projects in film or television, or have you been strictly kind of focusing on?
I've only been doing Zoom theater. So I did like a musical. There was like a musical about the election that we did on Zoom, and then I'm going to do another Zoom benefit for a company I work with a lot for Red Bull Theater. So it's been crazy.
How big can those be?
The one I'm about to do, I think, has about like 8 people in it, and it's 1802, but like fabulous 1802. So there's a lot of flexibility. So
and will they be in the same? The actors be in the same place, or is it?
No, it's all it. I mean, this is also the part that's kind of insane is that you have to, because the actors are all like in different places. You just send them the clothes and then hope it works out.
Yeah.
But luckily, since you only see them from like the waist up, you kind of have some flexibility. But you can't fit anything right. Like it's all Zoom fittings, which is like a whole mind horror.
Yeah. How many people can be in the audience? Can it be as big as
for a Zoom production?
Mm-hmm.
The Zoom production is just like this. Like we just tape this and then release this.
Record it and you release the record.
Yeah. We're not doing any theater.
Yeah. Cool. Well, please feel free to share the link with us. I'm sure that there will be a lot of people who'll be interested in that. So when you are on a project, can you talk us through what the process looks like? Like how, I would say a typical week, but I have a feeling that when there are different phases in your planning that look very different. So maybe the whole life cycle.
Yeah, I think that the fun part about this field is that there's no typical week, and it kind of fits my, hermit and external needs. Like if I'm at home sketching out the show, I'm like really internal, and I'm just not talking to anybody. I'm just listening to the radio or to music, and I'm just drawing, doing research. And then, or I'm like in fittings all day, like somewhere else. And then I'm like really like, happy and engaged and like talking to a lot of people. Because you're talking to the drapers and the milliners and the craftspeople and the actors, and so that's sort of, and then, at some point you're in tech, which means you're at work for 12 hours a day, like sitting in a dark room trying to keep fixing things.
Yeah. How much usually will change at that point? I mean, will you have to completely scrap it?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, sometimes things don't work, and you just got, they don't work for the scene, or you see it all together, and you're like, oh, this, like, there's something better out there, or the actor can't do their movement, like you've done all the fittings, but then they change the choreography, and the actor can't do it, and I keep trying to tell them that it's cheaper to change choreography than it is to change a costume, but sometimes I lose that battle.
Yeah.
And we change the costume.
Yeah.
So that's why, but that's also why we have tech and dress rehearsal and all that time. Is just so to balance it all out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. What's your favorite thing that you worked on?
The favorite thing that I worked on, I think recently, Into the Woods, is, I think a lot of you like pick that picture of that witch with the horns thing. like that one was like had like no money, and it was like, you know, upstate New York, in under a tent, so outdoor theater, which is like so. No, it's painful. It just sucks, you guys. But you know, but everybody's in it together. You know, like it sucks for everybody. But it was kind of great because it's a company I really like, the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, and they have a really good heart, and they really do keep helping you until it's done. And they don't say no, you can't do this. They just sort of they come at it with a yes and, like, you know, and they're very scrappy, but sometimes it's kind of great to do the no money shows to just get back to like what, as long as everybody's in a good, happy space, like you end up being like a lot more rewarded.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Where is it upstate?
It's in Cold Spring.
Okay.
It's in the Hudson Valley.
Pretty, not too far out, like an hour and a half, maybe an hour.
No. So that was like my also, I think it looked good. We had a good concept for it. Like we just sort of wanted to make it like a loose, fun Into the Woods that was like just sort of clever. And like the stepsisters played the princes, and the stepsisters had like these skirts that they like flipped around and turned into capes for the princes. And it was like it was cute and organic, and like it fit for that musical.
Yeah.
So I also like, I liked it. I like the people, but I also am really proud of the way it looked.
Cool. How, in your experience, like what are the main differences between film and or television and theater?
I think the main things are, I think in my experience, I get to build more on theater and film, and I'm not sewing it, right? Like somebody else is sewing it, but like you get to build more, you get to work with craftspeople more, and I find that in film and TV, you're always like at Macy's looking at the khaki pants.
Yeah.
And you're like just shopping like a crazy person at Macy's and JCPenney's, or even if you're pulling everything at Saks, you're just pulling like racks and racks of things as opposed to making the right thing. And so it's a different way of thinking about things.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And it also needs to be durable, particularly for long running shows.
And that's why you build stuff. But and the other thing I would say is that the main difference is how you handle your stress. In film and TV, the stress is like every day. Like it's there's constant like 17 fires a day that you have to put out. And in theater, it's more of a like gradual mountain.
Mm.
And so, you know, in film, you have to get it right, because the minute they shoot it, that's it. Like the first shot, that's it. And in theater and opera, you kind of get to look at it and go like, oh, I want to sort of change the jewelry, or I want to change this. And you get another try the next day to like keep fussing with it.
Yeah.
And so for me, that energy works better for me, the slow ramp up to stress, as opposed to the daily thing. Now, film pays way better. So you get paid for that daily stress. That is like real talk. Like you will make, if you want to buy an apartment, you should be in film and TV, and you should not work in theater.
That's good. It's important. It's important for
that's, you know, that's the real talk, is that like, you know, for the same sort of job of an associate, if when you're starting out, and if you're going to be an associate on Broadway, I think you sort of, if I'm correct, you're for a for-profit Broadway show, you make about like $300 a day, right? No, not even. Math is hard now from COVID times, but it's like, you know, it's kind of like $250 to $300 a day, right? And you're expected to work 6 days a week. and your hours are like, there's no time limit on your hours, which is what I'm trying to change right now with our union. But in film, you're making $5.50 a day. That's a huge difference. And you're only working 5 days a week. So you have your weekend. And you just sort of have to think about how you want your life to look like, and how it's not just like, I like pretty clothes, and so I work in opera, but I also like the way that the stress works in my day.
Yeah. And it also sounds like you're a lover of theater for a long time as well.
Yeah.
Totally. Important. You're going to be there every day.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I want to ask you how you find inspiration for your design work, and then I know I have some of your design work to share with us, everyone. So, how do you usually get inspired?
I mean, books, I have a book problem. But also I would say that your downtime when you're not working is really important to have that be like, like when you work out and you call it like active rest. When you're doing yoga, so annoying, but it's important, right? Like if you're working out all the time, then you're on your off day, you're doing yoga to like relax those muscles. It's the same thing when you're a designer, when you're like in tech and fittings, like all that stuff. And then on your downtime, it's important to go to museums, to go out and go through Central Park, go to be actively involved in going to see other art that is not specific to yours. And I think that's how you keep inspired and keep fresh.
Yeah, that's good advice. I know Maria had mentioned to us that she's studies people on the subway and stores them away in her mind for future.
Yeah, time. I mean that's the thing. And so the other thing is the book addiction is going to Strand and being like, look at this book on the history of Harley Davidson clothing. And you're like, well, I don't need this now, but I'll take it. Then I'll have it, and one day I'll use it. And then I used it for another project 5 years later. But I think it's the active rest. I think it's important to be engaged in not just sitting and watching TV, but engaged in going to look at things.
Yeah, that's good advice for sure. Well, I did give a sneak preview before, but here I want to flash to some slides of your work. And then a lot of these are pulled, actually I think all of them are pulled from Instagram that you had told me to pull. So some of your comments are there, but also please tell us a little bit more about what we're looking at.
That was for Cato and Utica, and I think that that the same way, my style is that I don't get too specific on historical fashion, Bobby. And that one was sort of Greco-Roman-ish. But there you can see where it goes from that's my sketch when I still used to do sketches on watercolor paper, and then the muslin fitting where we work everything else technically, and then the fabric fitting, and then the final show picture. And the thing with opera that's kind of great is because opera, they're such insane performers with their vocal cords, they can't really do a lot of action a lot of the times. And so you really have to give them, to me, you really have to give a fun, great visual so that you're engaged at the same time that they're singing.
So huge. Opera houses usually are just very large.
Yeah.
People in the back will really be able to see what you're
designing. Yeah, but also it's it's fun. I mean, they try to make it opera very elitist in this country, but actually if you can go to whenever the Met comes back, I'm sure they'll have free tickets, cheap tickets then. But it's kind of a weird art form, and it almost it feels almost postmodern sometimes because it's so alien to what we watch to have people be singing these weird octaves. It resembles more closely to me modern art than an antiquated thing, because it's like Klingon. It's so alien to how we deal with entertainment.
Yeah. So you, just a question on something you said. You said you used to draw in watercolor. What do you do now?
Oh, I sketch everything on the iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just faster. Also, I will. The other thing with Cato is that it was the set designer decided to do the whole set in like glossy red. So
Wow.
then I was like, and I only had 6 people in this opera, and I was like, how do I pull the people forward? And so that's how we ended up with that brilliant yellow.
Yeah, very cool. How many people do you usually have working with you on a team?
It depends.
Like on this one, when you had six people you were dressing.
Oh, then I personally had one assistant who was the swatcher and found like, and my assistant for that opera, they just swatch the fabrics and help with accessories. And then there's a whole costume shop that I think we had 2 or 3 drapers and their assistants and their stitchers.
Wow. Cool. The next show featured here, it's actually over 2 slides, is Xerxes.
Oh yeah, so that's a good example where like at first the director was like, I don't know, it was the same director as the slide before, and the director was like, I don't know, let's just make it different than the one before. So that is not a great way to start with a concept. But so the pen and Sharpie drawings are sort of like the modern versions of the costumes. That was my first pass, and then the director was like, yeah, but I don't want it like that. I want it more period. So then I did another pass at period, and then we ended up in Renaissance. But at the same time, there's certain things in the characters that ended up the same. Like that one girl was still in pink and flowers, and the other girl was still had like feathers.
I should have put them next to each other.
Yeah. So there's still things that link to the same concept.
This top left photo in the pink is the
that one.
Taking that dress into person, and then the one on the bottom here comes out.
Yeah. And so it's just, I think I will say that I instinctively think of color first. So I start from a color place first, and then I'm very flexible. I'm like, the shapes can be whatever shapes, but once I get stuck on a color for a character, it's very hard for me to unglue from that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing that you said before was about how you're sort of period-ish. You don't actually get too down in the weeds with being accurate. I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth there.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Because I think my favorite designers growing up, or like Gautier, Queen, like people who really, Galliano, like people who really, because that's also like, how old I am, but that ages me. But those were the people that were really like taking a period and then like shifting it completely and messing with it. And so that's the way that I like to do things.
Yeah.
To sort of mess around with it.
And it was actually another thing that stuck out to me, and I think several students had written to me about this as well, about Maria's lecture, was that it's actually a lot harder to be modern, to be in a modern day show or to do a modern day film than it is to do these period pieces, because if you get it kind of close to what the period is, everyone's like, okay, that's good, that's hard to find and hard to pull off, so it's fine. And as opposed to modern day, it's like
everybody has opinions on modern day. Everybody has opinions and taste levels, and you have a lot more control as a designer if you're doing period.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can't question too much.
Yeah.
That was the last slide of Xerxes, and this is Tis Pity.
Oh yeah, Tis Pity, She's a Whore. It's a 17th century title of a play. That was just like the corset that we built for her wedding thing with a sheer skirt underneath, but it was like still very poofy. But the same thing, right? Like you get this stuff built, but then you get like all the jewelry from like Jewelry Plaza and like glue it all over the place.
Yeah. Dish it up. Have you ever worked on the same show twice? Like different productions of the same?
Yeah, it's usually in Shakespeare's. that you end up doing the same over and over when I was younger.
Yeah.
There's one awful Shakespeare called Very Wise of Windsor that is horrible that I've done 3 times, unhappily.
And did you do totally different designs or kind of
Yeah. They're always all completely different because if the director is different, they just have like different ideas and you go in completely different ways. Yeah.
Do you find that more challenging or easier because you know the script so in and out?
No, I think it's easier. I mean, actually, I should have said this, but like even the Into the Woods, that was my 3rd time doing Into the Woods.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I hope to do it like 17 more times together.
When you have a favorite, you have a favorite.
I know.
The next one I have here is Salomé.
Oh, Salomé, that was at LA Opera, so that was like a fancy place, and so they built everything from head to toe. It was bananas. They even so the nipple rings, they made fake nipples that they then attached to the actors. So none of those are their real nipples. The performers don't want to show their real nipples on stage. Whatever, it's the whole thing.
Oh,
but
that commitment to be like, okay, you have to get your nipples pierced.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But also, even the woman next to him, she's in a bra with nipples on top of it.
Oh wow.
So they constructed fake nipples on everybody, which I was like, that's like the most,
Where do you do that? I mean, you literally have to have them made, or is there companies that produce that?
No, they made them.
Wow.
No, they just made them. They're the amazing craftspeople made them, and they made all the neck pieces. Like there's amazing craftspeople that can just like put all this stuff together.
Wow.
And mold stuff. Like those were like, they just molded them out.
Really cool.
Bananas.
Next one's Robin Hood.
Robin Hood, that was so fast. It was like a feminist retelling of Robin Hood. And that one was so fast that I didn't even do sketches. I just did collages.
Oh, wow.
Different looks. And see, this is like, that was one where there was no time. So I really did use Pinterest for the whole thing and just like did collages for each of the characters. And so that's Robin Hood and her gang of merry men.
That's fun.
And the collage of like, this is sort of close to what I'm going to end up with. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Approve it so I can start doing it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Flea in her ear.
That's another like fully built show with like, made hats and everything. That's another one where it's like, all the assistant is doing is swatching, and then there's an entire shop that builds everything. Down to like putting together all the flowers, like making the flowers, making the hat, making everything.
Will these shops be working on just one show at a time, or do they kind of service?
It depends. It depends on the company.
Yeah.
Most of them are working at least. This is for a regional shop, so they're only working on my show. In the Broadway shops, they're working on multiple shows at once.
Okay. This is pretty. I love that hat.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And then these are some action shots.
Action shots.
So the first one, you laying up all the characters in the beginning.
That's me. No, that's for the actors. That's me presenting. I think that's West Side Story to the actors. So in the rehearsal room, they will have all of the costume sketches up and the research up, or at least that's how I like to do it, so that they can keep remembering what they're wearing and what scene and what their inspiration is. Because the design team starts so much earlier than when the actors are cast. We have made decisions about their characters before they come in.
Got it. You have to tell them.
They kind of have to follow our lead.
Makes sense.
So hopefully we get it right.
And then is this you on the day of dress rehearsal? Or?
And then that's me. I think that's me actually fixing something for a photo shoot for a barber of Seville.
Oh. What's the largest budget of something that you've worked on?
I think the Salomé had a huge budget because I never knew what the budget was.
Yeah.
They were like, don't worry about it. And that was kind of amazing. Other than that, I think some of my other opera stuff. Again, it's hard to say because it's like the other opera stuff I think had budgets of like $40,000, but that's just the fabric. None of that is the labor. But
Yeah.
I have no idea what the labor is. On Broadway, this was 10 years ago. I worked on a musical that was the budget was like 500,000.
Wow.
So it varies. And then the smallest budget, that Into the Woods, that's my favorite. I think the budget was like 7,000.
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
it's everywhere.
Yeah. Do you have to roll to your own budget, or, I mean, is that something that's a part of your consideration right from the design, the outset of the design, or is it kind of you eke along as the show goes and ask for forgiveness, or?
No, not anymore. We don't get to do that anymore. Some designers do it. Some designers get away with it. But I think you sort of have to be fiscally responsible and realize that the money is coming from somewhere. I think it was when I worked on this film of Jane Eyre that Cary Fukunaga directed, and I was one of the assistants. And I remember we spent a fortune on these little orphan girls, and Cary, I remember the director being like, "I'm not going to get my second camera for this shot because you guys needed all this money."
Yeah.
And I was like, "But we needed it. Man, the clothes have to be perfect. We have to get gold boots." And then he was like, "What is the point if I can't shoot it?"
Yeah.
So I think you sort of do have to realize that you are part of a greater thing, and that you can ask for more money, but that means that they have to take it from somewhere else.
Got
Which
it.
sometimes I'm fine with. I'm like, that set doesn't need more money. Give me the money. But but I think you just have to be realistic. That the money is, somebody has had to find that money. It is not, you have to be a little bit fiscally responsible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good direction. Did you ever have a time where you had to go beg borrow for more money other than the Jane Eyre?
I mean, I think I do on every project. To be fair, but now I've sort of switched some of my begging into begging for paying assistants more and giving us more support.
Yeah.
Rather than budget money. Like now I kind of feel like we need to pay people more and put the pressure on paying people a living wage rather than I need more money because I need the fabric that's $150 a yard and I need 8 yards of it. Like I think that's the part of the COVID time when we're trying to be like, why did we just torture ourselves and get paid nothing?
Yeah.
Like we should actually be asking for more.
Makes sense, for sure. So you obviously have you worked outside of New York? Actually, I should say, because you grew up in Paris, but then you've been in
I worked. The Jane Eyre was in London, so I was in London for a few months, and then I've done a lot of opera in Colorado, and a lot of musicals in the Berkshires, and once I got to go to South Korea, and and then like Vegas. Vegas was crazy. That was fun.
Yeah.
So you do travel a lot.
So that's an interesting point. Have you always had your home base in New York, but then you kind of hopped all over?
Yeah, but I usually travel 6 months out of the year.
Oh wow, cool. Like personally or for work?
No, for work.
Okay. And how do you find projects that are outside New York?
Listen, the thing is, all the directors are in New York, and well, I don't know if that's going to be true after COVID, but all of the meetings happen in New York.
Yeah.
And so all of the production happens in New York. Everything gets built in New York, and then you go places.
You don't hop around.
Like the fabric shops are all in New York. Like we're based here.
Can you tell us anything about the personalities of these different places you've worked, or do you feel like they all kind of represented New York because of the fact that you're centered here?
No, I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens post-COVID, but no, I think all of the theaters have their own personality based on the state they're in.
Yeah.
And we, as visiting artists, are the ones that, there is a stigma about, the New York designers come in and like start telling everybody what to do. But you guys know, I mean, a lot of these places only have like a Joanne Fabrics, and in New York you have like so much more, and so you do start to want certain things, and like you want like the best fabrics, and when you're in these small towns being like, well, we have to ship it from New York, they get a little bit like snooty, like, why can't you find it at Joann's? And you're like, because I can't. Yeah. I can't make armor out of upholstery at Joann's.
Yeah.
I mean, I have, but it sucks.
Can be done. Let's see. I have a lot more questions, but I do know that the students have a lot today. Yeah. So
all right,
I'll ask my final one, and maybe I'll come back if we still have time left. But what piece of advice do you have for students who are just starting out and want to go into costume design?
I mean, I think you should go do it. I think the part of the fun, part of the reason I like opera is because I did film, I did commercials, I did Broadway, I did all this stuff, so that I experienced all these things to find like what the thing was, what I was most passionate about. And so you have to find like what you like doing all day long. Because I love watching movies, but I don't like working on a movie. I don't like getting up at 4 a.m. and like going to be on set at 5 and being there all day. That's not how I like to spend my time. The flip side is that I don't make as much money as Maria does. Like that's real, So I don't know. I think you have to think about what makes you passionate, but I think you need to experience a lot in order to really know that. And then my other thing would be if you guys are really great. I saw one of the questions that I just want to answer is that the greatest challenge facing our industry right now is that all the fabric stores are closing, all of these great resources are closing, and so what is going to become even more important is to become really good at crafts and really good at manipulating fabric. Even if you're how to digitally manipulate fabric, like make it like an interesting thing, that is going to become even more essential, because you can't just go to Mood and get like some cool interesting thing if there's no Mood. So that I think is going to become really how to make something really special is going to become more important. And I've become even more reliant on craftspeople that can dye, paint, alter fabric. Like even if I find a brocade that's almost close to what I like, to bring it to somebody who can just like do a lot of things to it becomes even more essential because it's not out in the stores.
Yeah.
So that's great. That would be a skill on the side if you want to go do costumes, to like get good at that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, awesome. Well, with that, I want to turn it over to the students. Please raise your hand if you have a question. Violetta, you're the first person.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here today. It's really interesting being from Maria to you, where you're actually on Broadway within the more design costume industry. And I was just really curious as to what was your first big opportunity within the costume design realm, and how had it like impacted the rest of your career?
It's hard to say. I have two. The first was like when I was straight out of undergrad. I got to do a 12th night of Shakespeare at the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival. So I think that's also why I love it so much, is because that was my first job ever at like 21, and it was like me, my best friend and I each designed a show there. She did Winter's Tale, I did 12th Night. We assisted each other and we ran wardrobe. Like it was super scrappy, but it was such a fun summer, and we worked hard, but we like loved it. And I think that we figured out, because there was no shop, there's no support, we figured out how to do stuff on our own, right? Some of the actors I think might have felt that differently, that they were like, oh, awesome, 22-year-old designers that are just gluing shit together. But I think that was really fun. And that showed me that you can be really passionate and really engaged while putting on a show. And we were around the actors all the time, so it was also that collaborative energy. And then the other one was like when I was straight out of grad school and I got to do opera because a teacher recommended me for it. So that's the thing that you go to school for, really, is that the teachers recommend you for jobs. But also, if you worked for 3 years, you would have met the same people and moved up. So, but the teacher recommended me for my first big opera. That was Cinderella. It was Cendrillon, and that, you know, I don't know about you guys, but that's my favorite tale. And I was like, oh my God, Cinderella, it's all about the clothes. It's going to be so great. It was exciting because it was my first opera. It was the first time I had a budget that was like $40,000. I was used to doing budgets of $4,000. It was my first time having a really good shop, and I didn't have any ramp up to it. I felt like I jumped into the deep end and was like, all right, let's do this. But it was with the same like happy energy. So I think you just have to keep loving your things. Does that make sense? That wasn't a good sentence at the end there, but
no, that's great. Like you're like the whole part I feel like about Broadway is like you have to enjoy what you're doing, because like you were comparing to Maria, like she does make more money and Broadway isn't exactly like the most financially stable from what you were explaining. So it's like definitely like choose passion over more that financial aspect. Well, from what I gathered.
I mean, that's real. That's real. If you want to buy an apartment, go into film and TV. If you want to like have children, go into film and TV. We're trying to change the theater and opera industry right now. But what I'm saying is that I am submitting to our union to create a committee to change some of these structures now. So maybe by the time you guys want to have kids, we'll have changed it, but it might be for the next generation. Like right now, it's not structured. Like traveling all the time, being in tech for 12 hours a day, and not getting paid enough to hire like babysitters and stuff doesn't make it conducive for people to have families, right? Or not costume designers, at least, because of the amount of time required. We're trying to change it, but we're really in the beginning stages.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
It is fun though. It's fun. You get to hang out. You get to hang out with your friends and make art. Like, I also think that when I work in film and TV, you're not stuck, but you're only talking to other costume people. Like you're talking to costume people and wardrobe people. And when I'm working in theater and opera, I'm working with the set designer. I'm working with the lighting designer. I'm working with the sound design. Like I'm working with people that aren't just my field, and that is kind of more fun for me. Talk to me in a month when I'm like, this industry is still dead. I'm going to film and TV. Like,
nothing wrong with dabbling in both, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's awesome though. Like it's just a very collaborative effort. Like everyone wants to kind of accomplish this piece of art that's going to be on stage. So that's like a really cool like family community you guys have.
Yeah, kind of like that, and that's what the tech is. Like the tech rehearsal is like everybody's in this problem solving together, and it's more fun than just being in our department section and just taking care of our. To me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today again. So thank you for answering my question. You have a great day.
Muriel, I have you next.
Hi. Thanks for being here. I love hearing your thoughts about costume design and your career. And something that we didn't talk about today, but I saw on your website, was that you used to design for dance. And I'm really interested in movement with clothes for like apparel design. So I was wondering, like, what are some of the best like tricks or techniques that you've learned for designing for movement on stage?
Well, dance is really tricky because the choreographers like they don't think in cost or in clothing terms. They don't really think in like concept terms either. And it's such a mood-based thing that you really have to, like, I think one dance piece, the choreographer was like, I don't know, I like the idea of suits, but I like asymmetry, and I like the idea of a dragon and, fire. And I was like, okay, I don't know what any of that means. And so with dance, what I do is, I haven't done dance in a while, but what I used to do is just go to the rehearsal and watch them work, and then organically draw things as they're moving. And so that becomes a way more collaborative thing, because the choreographer, there's no text to base your ideas on, there's no larger concept, and then they are not good at verbalizing what they're doing. So you really have to go to rehearsal and just draw dancers moving, and then slowly, I think intuitively, some sort of clothing language comes out of you. So it's a lot more of an organic process. I mean, the technical side is that I will say that when an actor tells me, like, I feel like this is going to rip here, I'm like, I don't believe you. You're just a whiny actor. And when a dancer says that, I'm like, it's going to rip. I totally believe them. Like, they know their bodies. They know how to, they know what works, what doesn't work for them. And so you really have to listen to them. With actors, I don't. Actors are just vain. Lying.
From a process standpoint, though, if you're actually observing the dancers rehearsing before you're designing, does that mean that you kind of come in a little later than you would in theater?
I did, but I think for dance, you can't get through in pre-production. It's not, in opera, I think we get hired about like a year in advance. So you have a year of pre-production before they even start rehearsals. And with dance, I think it really does have to come all together. And it does become a more organic process.
Interesting. Is that it, Muriel, or anything else?
Thank you. Yeah, no, just thinking about everything you just said. So
I think if you want to do dance, I think you should just watch a lot of like Mark Morris videos and like weird choreography things, and just watch dancers moving and see if that sort of like inspires, now that we can't go see anything, like pushes some of that inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the way that the clothes move, I feel like really affects the dancing. Like if you have like a huge flare right here, then that totally changes like the dance maybe. And then functionally, I feel like there's also so many more like things you need to do for like how it moves, like comfort and mobility. So I don't know. That's why I'm interested.
But, I mean, it's fun. It's really technical. Like, it's really, you have to really think about, like, if they're flipping upside down, like, what are you seeing? And how can they, like, move with all that stuff? And what, super stretch thing are you going to make out of? If you're going to do a costume that is, like, a big skirt or something, you have to give them stuff in rehearsal from day one. Or else they will do a dance that does not work with that skirt. Like, you have to give them the problems from day one, and then they'll choreograph around it.
Yeah, that makes sense because you need to figure out how your body moves in the clothes when you're dancing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Funny story on that note, I was reading Swan Lake to my 5-year-old last night, and I said, someday when the virus is over, we'll go and we'll see some ballet, and we'll go in person. She goes, oh, no, it's okay. You can out. I'll wear a mask. I swear. I'll keep it on. And I was like, oh, if only that was all. It was just about you. But maybe something soon. Thanks, Muriel. Catherine, I have you next.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I was just curious to hear a little bit more about your experience with the MFA, and if you think that it's important for someone that's interested in going into costume design to have that background, or if it's not, if you could just find a job in theater coming straight from a fashion degree.
I mean, I think you can find a job, you know, out of a fashion degree.
Did she freeze for you guys? Okay. So, we just lost you for a minute or two, or a second or two.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't think you have to have an MFA to work. Like, I really don't. But I think you can sort of, you know, I mean, you can email Maria, you can email me. Like, we, you know, we always need non-union assistance. But I do think that if you don't come from a undergrad training of theater, it is important to learn how to break down a play and how to break down characters in a play. And that dramaturgy is important.
Okay.
If you're you know how to do clothes, that's great. But like, how do you do clothes to tell a story? That's a different skill, because you have to learn the psychology of breaking down a play.
Okay, that's helpful. I just had one other quick question. When you said that you got a position as a swatcher, was that after your BFA or after your MFA?
After the BFA.
BFA. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Simon Lewis, I have you next.
Hello. My one question would be, if you could go back and tell yourself one piece of advice before starting your career, what would it be?
I was to think about the money more. Like, really. Like, think about the money and time, and like, you know, really think that my time is valuable. And I think one of the shows I did, 'Tis Pity She's a Whore, we got a grant. We got an extra grant. Like, I got paid $1,500. My assistant got paid $1,000. It's like such not enough money, but not a livable wage. But and then we got this grant. The show was supposed to be like $8,000, but then we got a grant for it. So then the budget was like $25,000, and we were like, oh, we can get all this stuff built. This is so awesome. And so then we spent all this, but instead of going to a rental house and just renting clothes, renting costumes, which is like the fast way, we then started building things, right? But that means we're swatching. That means we're in things for muslins. That means we're in final fittings. That means we are working more for the same money. And in retrospect, I was like, wait, when we got that grant, I should have paid us more. Like, what were they doing? Like, just pouring that money back into the show. And I think that, you know, I think it's also something that fashion people do, where you put all of your money into the show as opposed to valuing yourself and valuing, you know, your time, and valuing like, and now at 7 o'clock, I am done. I'm not working on this. I'm not sewing a ribbon on a thing. I'm not answering emails. Like, I need my time. So I think that's I wish I'd said that to myself, because I think that I spent a lot of time putting all of my emotional time into work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Claire, I have you next.
Coming here. Okay, so a few years ago, I talked to one of the costume designers at the St. Louis Opera House. And she was telling me how, like, when creating the costume stuff for opera, there is a bit of a different process than for other things, because when opera singers sing, they have their chest puffed out a lot and their arms kind of back, and so you have to like adjust for that, so, like set the arms back further, like the armholes and all that. Is that true? And are there like other adjustments that you have to make? In like
I have not found that to be true, the arms back thing. I think that's just sort of like every performer has a different way that they want to do things, right? And that I will say the only thing I've really discovered with opera singers is that they hang by their throat. They can't, like, even if you try to build something that's further out from their throat, they just want to know that they can extend all the way, and they don't like anything close to their throat. But other than that, I think like some of them can like run and jump and do flips. Like some of them just, stand and just shout. They're just like actors. They just sort of do whatever they need.
Right.
So it's not in the musical theater actors. You have to think about like when you're taking the chest measurements, like what is the biggest like extension, and then what sort of build a little bit for that so that they can have movement.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sharon, I have you next. Maybe she's having some technical difficulties. Let's go ahead to Amanda, and if she wants to go after that, that'd be great.
Wait, I think, am I here now? Oh,
There you
hi.
are.
I'm sorry. Okay, so, yeah, I would love to have a one-on-one with you for like a week over Zoom, because I have like all these questions, because it's an area that I find very attractive, and I think you've been very open about a lot of the ins and outs and considerations. So thank you for that. And so I'm cheating, Professor. I'm sorry. I've squished my question, and it's a little. I tried to connect them.
That's a good question.
So one thing is what happens to costumes after the production? Are they recycled? Are they reused? Are they just given away, donated to costume houses or whatever? And also, like, do you find in theater and opera that you build more costumes or source more costume parts or materials? And then lastly, what's the greatest reward you get in costume design?
Okay. The most of the clothes end up in costume houses. Like a lot of the stuff ends up in costume houses, which is great because then when you have a no budget show, you can go and like rent something. Like the TDF costume collection in New York has a whole bunch of stuff from Broadway shows or from the Met Opera. You guys should follow their Instagram.
What is it called? Sorry?
It's the TDF costume collection, and I think on one of my recent pictures I tagged them. Whatever picture it is when I'm on the ladder or something, I tagged them. You should follow them. They're great. That's where a lot of the New York costumes go to have another life, right? And then you can rent them. You can add stuff to them. You can change a hem, add ribbons, do a bunch of. There's some wacky stuff in there, and so that's also a fun place to go visit when we can all go visit things. But and then I personally like to build things from scratch, but I do sometimes source things. But I like my personal taste is that like if I like watching Law and Order SVU, like I love that. I've watched every single episode. If I had to work on that, I would like gouge my eyes out, right? Like that's not like to go find like gray suits all day. That's not my thing. But I watch it religiously. So it's also that reality of like I don't like to go watch a lot of opera because a lot of it's too long and it's kind of boring. But that's what I like to work on because it's shiny and I get to build things. So that's also, I'm passionate about my day-to-day job. I'm still like everybody else. I'll just watch Netflix and like Law and Order. It's not helping my industry, but whatever. And I don't know what the next one was.
The greatest reward you get from being a costume designer?
I don't know. I think you don't know what your reward is. I think you're just happy when you're working, right? Like we're having this huge moment right now where we can't work and we don't know what to do with ourselves. I think that is also why we've started all these committees to fix things in our union is also because we all want to have Zooms together and talk, because all these other designers don't know how to talk to each other normally without a project. And so now this is our new project, is fixing systematic problems in our union. But I don't know. I think when you're an artist, you don't really know why you're doing it. You just know you have to. You just know you're miserable doing other things. And it's not very clear. You're just kind of like, I need to do it.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah, you will be back. Broadway will be back. Opera will be back, because I want to see 6, and it was going to open the week New York shut down. And I saw it in London, and it was fantastic. And I think you can take your daughter, Professor. I'm not sure. I don't know how old she is, but it's fantastic. And I was devastated by that. So it has to open. It's going to open because I want to see that show.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Amanda, I have you next.
Hi.
Hi.
So this kind of relates back to one of the previous questions. So kind of like going back to how designers are often like overworked and underpaid. Like what kind of experiences and difficulties did you have like getting a project done?
I mean, I think that our main issue is that, for example, on a modern show, like on a modern play, on like a play that's about like some family and like their kitchen, the set designer will have an assistant who will help him make the model, or make, I don't know why I got so gendered there on the set designer, but like help them make a model. And that's what the assistant does. They just do pre-production. And then the set designer has a technical director who's going to build the set, an assistant technical director who's helping him build the set, and then they have a person who's doing all the props, like all the glasses, all the stuff. And then they also have scenic painters that are there, like doing stuff. The costume designer will get one assistant, and that is not fair. The lighting designer has an assistant, and then they also have a master electrician. They have electricians hanging the lights. But because there is a gendered problem, and a problem because our field, much like fashion, is women and gay men, it has this culturally, there's an imbalance about what the work we do and the effort that it takes. And a lot of artistic directors and heads of companies, either they understand that sets and lights are like big things that need a lot of things, need a lot of help, and that we're just doing like women's work, right? And that you're just shopping. So that's just easy, right? And so we're trying to change it and educate them to be like, listen, even if we're just shopping, that means, for one character to have like an outfit, you have to try on like 10 pairs of shoes. So somebody is shopping 10 pairs of shoes for each character. And you're fitting them, and then you have to return 9 pairs of shoes. And then that actor doesn't like those shoes, so then you have to reshop them. Like it's like there's a huge amount of effort that we're doing, and I think that we're disproportionately compensated, and we do not have the same support that other departments have. We also tend to work overtime and not declare it, whereas nobody in lighting, nobody in scenic does that ever. So there is part of it is like the way we're perceived is like this sexist industry that we're in the world, even in film, trying to change that, Yeah. But part of it is also we do it to ourselves, where we will just take one for the team and keep doing it until it's right. And I think sometimes we have to. Yeah, we have to learn to say no.
Yeah. I was going to say,
like,
so compared to a set design or lighting design where you have to be in the theater, so it's very clear when your hours are on and off. Yours is one that requires you to be moving around and doing different things, so no one notices you.
yeah, I've assisted people that are like, yeah, I mean, you have to be at tech at noon, but Century 21 opens at 7:45. So start shopping.
Yeah.
And you're like, like, this is not fair.
Yeah.
So I think that we're trying to change those cultural things in the industry. That is, it's the producer's problem. It's also our problem. It's also the way we do it to ourselves also. And so changing that culture within ourselves and telling people that your time is worth more.
That's great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Gabriella, I have you as our last question of the night.
Hey, hi, thank you. First of all, thank you for being so real and honest about the sexism in the industry and all that you've been touching upon. My question is about sustainability. You mentioned the importance of paying people a livable wage, and you also mentioned that how costs go to the costume houses at the end of their life cycle. What I wanted to hear your thoughts is in what other ways can costume design be more sustainable?
I mean, I think we're trying to figure that out now. I mean, I will say that like on this future Zoom thing that I'm doing, they were trying to talk me. They were trying to tell me, they were like, the last one we did, we just ordered everything from Amazon. Like, can't you do that? And I was like, well, I don't really want to, because I don't need to give Jeff Bezos more money. He already got so much money off COVID. Like, I think he's good. But also, we have all these New York companies here that need help. And there's rental companies here. And so we can just rent the clothes and rent accessories and actually give money to companies that need it, and also not just buy another product off Amazon. Excuse me, but you know what I mean? Like, there's ways to do it smarter. The other sustainable thing that we're trying to do more is, I mean, I stopped shopping stuff that is in department stores and started shopping, for like my modern things. Like this started like a couple of years ago, like just going to Beacon's Closet, going to Salvation Army, just doing that work. And like, you're going to alter that stuff anyway. Like, why don't you alter it from something that already exists instead of buying another thing? And then also for us, our organizational tools that we made, like these giant binders with all the shows information on it, and now we're just moving more digitally, and that also helps. But I think it's really thinking about, I don't know. I can go on and on about this, but like the other, whenever I did operas in Colorado, I tried to use Colorado teams, and I tried to push for buying. Colorado's the one place that doesn't just have a Joann's that has fabric stores, and I tried to push for like, can we support? If you're making art in that community, can you support the people in that community?
Local resources.
I know I said, I know I said the whole New York thing, and just on Joann's, but like, I'm a snob. But I do think that when there are resources in those small towns, and there are interesting, like, Beacon's Closet type things, or like resale stores type things, like that's where you go, not Macy's online, not like an online boutique thing. It's like trying to find the local artisans that you can hire, support the local cobbler, like trying to really support that community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
That was great. Thank you so much for being here, Sara. This has been an awesome lecture, and loved having your pictures as a compliment as well. And I wish you luck through the rest of this craziness, and hopefully
Thanks, you guys.
It's over soon for all of our sakes, but definitely the theater industry is ready to get back to work.
Yeah.
And please send me those Zoom links. I'd love to share it if that's something that.
Yeah, and I would say, like, once we ever start again, like, you guys, all Maria and I, like, all these people that you're meeting on these things, these are the people you contact later, right? Like, you message us, you DM us, being like, "Hi, would you like some assistance? Like you even say like, do you want to have coffee? I know why you're contacting me for work.
Yeah.
Like just be like, hi, can I work for you for a couple weeks? Can I work for you for a month? Do you have a project? Like just be direct. People know. They know you don't need to have coffee with them. They know you want a job.
That's
Contact all
very
these people you're
Coffee.
meeting. Yeah, just contact all these people you're meeting right now. Like that's the way to do it.
great advice.
All right.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you.
Here is your final attendance question for today. Shoot me a note with the most interesting thing you learned today about costume design in theater. Also, side note, if you missed it, I did post an extra credit on Instagram this week. I think 3 of you responded before class time, so it's been pulled down, but there will be more. So make sure you're following along and looking for opportunities. Anyone have any questions for today?
No, thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.